How are the Lions planning on replacing one of their most legendary players while also upgrading the talent pool on their roster? For some answers, I enlisted the assistance of my trusted friend and colleague, Darrin Carlo of the True Man Advantage podcast, as we put the Lions' offseason activity under review.
Yes, and there has been a ton of good sports news, good and bad. Let's start with the final farewell to Calvin Megatron Johnson from the Lions. He retired after 9 seasons. Battled injuries for the past couple years, him as a Lion. He definitely goes down as one of the greats to play the position, a surefire Hall of Famer, and really sets a tone on what happens, what the body really goes through playing in the NFL, retiring at such a young age. It's something that you don't see that often.
No, and I think, first of all, I think Calvin is a transcendent player and he changed the game and the way we look at it. But I think in his case, if he played for a better team, he'd probably still be playing. The injuries certainly played a bigger factor in what the public saw. Obviously, he was always injured. He only made the playoffs twice in the 9 years he played, and I think the losing really took a toll on him as well.
Yeah, it could have been that, or it could have just been, he was just he had his fill. He made his money. He set his records. He will go down in history as one of the greatest Detroit Lions to ever put on a pair of cleats. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely a trend-setting type of event where players, he's getting up there, but I still think he had like 1 or 2 years left of good football in him. But it's his decision, and he will definitely be missed.
Yeah, Darrin, I think the retirement of Calvin Johnson, why it's a sad thing for all the fans that gravitated towards one of the best receivers to ever play the game. I think the $11 million the Lions saved could also be a good thing for the franchise moving forward, because when Bob Quinn took the job, he meant the fact that the overall depth on the roster needs to be improved anyway. So why it's a sad day to see Calvin go at such a young age, circa Barry Sanders. I do think financially and for the long-term health of the team, it's a good thing.
And it's kind of surprising. They have they didn't really make a big splash when it comes to free agency yet. But I'm okay with that. I would rather have, names that not too many people know, but obviously if they can deliver, then people will get to know these names as, key signings for them. But, take one, for example, out of Cleveland. They signed a special teamer, Batamosi, to a 2-year deal, $4.5 million for a special teams a player, which you don't see that often.
Not on special teams, you're right. But going back to the Lions, I think Bob Quinn is using free agency as a selective process on who he wants to sign. The Marvin Jones signing, obviously, he won't replace Kelvin Johnson, but he does replace the speed element that the offense is now lacking. I think you look at guys like Eric Ebron who need to take the next step. Corey Fuller may get an increased run with this team. But I do think they'll have to draft another wide receiver. And as far as re-signing Haloti Nada, wasn't a huge fan of that. They just signed Raphael Bush from the New Orleans Saints to replace James Ahedebo. If you take a look at New Orleans' defensive numbers from last year, I'm not so sure about that signing. But again, I think the Lions are going through a selective process in free agency. And you don't build your team through free agency anyway. We've seen too many examples of that not working out. So I do appreciate the selective process the Lions are going through in free agency this year.
Exactly, and just see that the NFL announced the 2016 compensatory draft picks, and the Lions get an extra third-round pick and a and a sixth-round pick in this upcoming draft, which can only post well for them. You know, getting those hidden treasures, towards the end of the draft, which if Bob Quinn has learned anything from Bill Belichick and all those great football minds over there in New England, that's where you could find maybe the next Tom Brady in the sixth round.
Well, I think the reason Bob Quinn got this job was because of his eye for scouting. And I do think the draft will tell us a lot more about what direction Bob Quinn wants to take this team. But if you look at what they've done in free agency now, and you see that they're bringing in Russell Okung later this weekend, what are your thoughts on how these moves will affect Bob Quinn's philosophy going into the draft?
It's kind of tough to say because he's been all over the map, with, I think he's focused mostly on the defensive side. I know that he's got, what's his name, Tavon Wilson. He got to sign with the Lions, or is going to be signing with the Lions. He's cornerback, not too many people know, out of New England. So he's going to be, I think he's going to sign, a player from here, a player from there, for different positions. Like you said, this mostly for depth, not really as a starter role, but you said in this NFL, injuries happen constantly, so you have to have a good depth roster, to survive the season, But I like to see where they continue to go in free agency, what kind of players that they key on. You mentioned Okung is going to be brought in for an interview. His age is up there, and also his injury prone is up there as well. But if he can be a leader on that offensive line and coming from a winning franchise like Seattle, can only help the Lions. Signing players that I described, when you don't really have any depth, especially on the defensive line, it kind of struggles. So you're gonna have to need as many bodies as you possibly can get.
Just wrapping up the discussion on the Lions, I think the signing of Haloti Nada was a waste of money. But anyway, they were thin at that position, so I think defensive line, and even if they bring in Russell Okung, I still think they'll look on the offensive line as well.